Hey everybody, it's Dr. Jensen with CCJ 3701 Research Methods in Criminology. So I'm back here in Turlington Hall, and I thought I would do kind of a mini office hours to give you some help and feedback on your topic. So these are things you're going to want to think through and make decisions about for your paper that should make life easier. Because my job is to help you graduate, and the best research paper is the finished research paper. We're going to be super practical and make sure you have a doable question, that you have data you can use, variables that will work for you, analyses you can run, and a full paper topic that you can write out and finish and turn in. So I'm like your parole officer. I don't want to see you next semester, because if I do, it means you didn't pass. And you do have to pass this class to fulfill your requirements for your diploma. And so I want you to have a great experience and learn all the skills and move on with life and use these things later on and not have to retake the class. So again, please reach out. I brainstorm with students about variables and how to code stuff all the time. We can code stuff over the phone. I don't even care. We work on variables together. That's not a big deal. And sometimes variables are kind of complicated and you need a second brain to think through how you might approach it or the strategy you might use. So I'm open to all of that. You guys have some fascinating topics. I will tell you, these topics are cool. I've seen hundreds of topics, and the topics you have range from depression, drug addiction, incarceration, family relationships. You look at social media, you look at lifestyle, gender, race, being arrested, mental health. You have all kinds of cool stuff that you're looking at. So I actually have a list of all the topics you guys came up with. Some people are still playing around with topic a little bit. Looking at this list might help you make some final decisions. There's no reason you couldn't steal a topic from somebody else. I don't mind if people write on the same topic. That's not a big deal. As long as you're into it and it's something you're going to be motivated to write about. That's really what matters. So my job is to make sure you have the data you need, the variables, the topic, and it's all set. After this point in time, I would not change the topic because you're going to get behind. You got to get some writing created about it, your literature review. You're going to have your theory and your methods. You're going to start developing about that. And eventually you're going to code your variables and run your analyses and start creating your tables, and your paper's starting to build itself. You don't want to change topic midstream. That would be self-sabotage. Do not do that. I've had students do that, and it's a very, very low likelihood of success. I've literally had students change a topic 2 weeks before graduation. And I've only had it maybe happen 13 times across 600 students, and only 3 of them did it successfully, and they about killed themselves working nights and weekends and pulling all-nighters trying to do it, and it didn't really work out very well. It wasn't their best work, and they scraped by and kind of passed. They got a C, and they were otherwise doing really well in the class, getting an A, but, you know, they couldn't stay on their topic a minute longer. They got super bored and they had to change it, or they didn't feel like they would write the paper. I said, okay, it's your funeral. But they basically traded their A for the C. But for them, it was better to graduate and move on than to be bored with the topic or have something not work for them. So they were kind of singing the song, C's get degrees, C's get degrees. And that's fine. Maybe you sing that song too. I don't know. But you have to be practical. You want to kind of pin that topic down so you can get going on it, because you really only have a few weeks left of this class to get lots of things done. And again, I'm trying to leave you alone so you have time to do all that. But you can see how changing your topic would be not a good idea. So let's talk about a few things that you need to be thinking about in order to be successful on your topic to keep you from having to redo stuff later. First thing is those of you using AdHealth, which are many people in the class. You need to remember the kind of study AdHealth is. We haven't talked about this as much. This study is actually a longitudinal study. In fact, it's in the title, the National Longitudinal Study of Adolescent to Adult Health from 1994 to 2008. Longitudinal study means this is a study that was done over time with the same group of people spaced so many years apart. So literally, there were thousands of kids that they found in 1994 between the ages of 11 and 21, and they surveyed them and their parents. And they put all that in what we call wave 1, which occurred in 94, right? Then 4 years later, they tried to find all those same kids again and did wave 2, which happened in 1998. So everybody's 4 years older. So now you're getting older teenagers and some early 20-somethings, and they asked them about their lives at that time. Then, quite a few years later, in 2004, they did wave 3. They surveyed them again and said, hey, those of you still around, now you're in your 20s, how's life going? What are your experiences? Same group, surveyed them again. The final wave occurred at wave 4, which was in 2008, so now you have mostly 30-somethings and even some 40-somethings by then. What has happened since then? Okay, so it's the same group that we talked to over time. Now realize that the sample size gets smaller and smaller over time. So over 14 years of a study between 94 and 2008, we have what we call attrition. Attrition is basically falling out of a study due to kind of natural consequences. Things like moving and you can't find the person anymore because they didn't leave a valid address. Deciding I don't want to be in the study anymore. And they have the right to refuse continued participation. Or it could be I died and you can't survey me anymore. It could be all kinds of stuff. So those are people that we can no longer keep participating in the study due to those kinds of things that happen. There's other factors that cause attrition or falling out of a study, but those are kind of the main ones. Okay. Sometimes it's incarceration. Oh yeah, that guy that was in your study, he's in jail now. Can't really talk to him anymore. That happens too. Okay. So attrition does happen. And you'll notice that the people that are in wave 1 are a substantially bigger group than the people in wave 4. Same people, just smaller because not everybody continued in the study that many years later. Makes sense, right? So that's AdHealth, the longitudinal study. Some of you might be using General Social Survey. That is a cross-sectional survey, meaning it happens at one cross-section, one point in time, one group of people at that moment, and you're done. Okay, so every year that the General Social Survey happened, it's a different sample of people, different year. Most of the questions continue year to year, but they're all being asked of different people. So every year you get a new group. Okay, so you're not following a group over time, you're getting a new group. We call it a repeated cross-sectional. Okay, so you can still do trending data over time, what happens, but the people you're studying are different for each year. Okay. Make sure that if you are using data that's longitudinal, like AdHealth or any other data set you might be using, that you think about time causal ordering. So many variables happen at a certain place in time where you need to keep that in mind if you're looking at things that happen later to them. Okay, so you wouldn't want to use something in the future to predict something that happened in the past, right? That's kind of out of the time order. So it's very common to say, did this, which happened in your past, affect something that happened in your future? So something maybe in wave 1 contributing to something else that happened in wave 4. Okay. You can do those studies. We do them all the time, but you wouldn't want to do the opposite, right? Because that doesn't work with how time works. In fact, you'll get errors in SPSS saying, what is this? So make sure you're using the right variable from the right wave. And this comes up occasionally with variables that get repeated over time. So sometimes a student will say, hey, I found a drug use variable from wave 3 and a drug use variable from wave 2, and they're worded the same, and all the answers are the same. What should I use? And I tell people, well, when do you want to be talking to these guys? Do you want to have more time elapse? Or do you want to hit them at this point in time? And what about your other variable? And so you have to kind of look at what time you want to focus at. I always prefer the wave 3 and wave 4 variables because more time has elapsed, meaning I have more chances of experiences happening and getting kind of more data and those kind of things. So wave 2 might be a little too early for some people. But sometimes the questions change over time. We're asking questions that have more to do with adolescence in wave 1 and wave 2. We ask questions that have more to do with adulthood in wave 3, wave 4. So we're going to ask them a lot more questions about employment and about romantic relationships as they get older than we really would ask 14-year-olds. Okay. So keep those things in mind to make sure you use the right time sequence of things when you're using variables. A few of you have some options in the kind of dependent variable you have. So your dependent variable is drastically and primarily what determines what regression you're going to run. So you're going to run several statistics over your study. You'll run some bivariate statistics, but the main one you're going to do is a multivariate. You're going to run either linear regression or you're going to run logistic regression. One of those two is going to be your main statistic that you're going to present in your paper. You're going to show the results and interpret those results and tell us what you found out. So if your dependent variable is quantifiable, it's interval, like some kind of number, how much, how many, then you're going to run linear. This goes for things like points on a scale, where you can kind of have higher or lower scores, things like that. So that's a linear regression. If your question has more to do with whether or not something happened, okay, this or that, then you're going to run a logistic regression. Okay, so you're going to look at the chances or the likelihood of that thing happening. That means your dependent variable is nominal. Okay, it's in kind of a 1-0 style, it happened or it didn't happen kind of coding. Okay, so some of you have ordinal dependent variables, meaning you kind of have elements of both a little bit. So if you have an ordinal dependent variable and it has multiple categories, multiple things happening, or a little bit of a way to kind of order or say how much of something's going on, it kind of lends itself to either regression. So if you want more of a quantity style answer of, how much, you could actually take that ordinal variable, maybe it's 1, 2, 3, 4, strongly agree, disagree kind of a thing, and you could stick it in a linear regression. You could also just recode it into being this way or this way, and you could run a logistic regression. Okay, so if you have more of an ordinal style dependent variable, you actually have some choices. Okay, so it just depends on what way you want your question answered. Do you want a chances or a likelihood of something happening, or do you want more of a quantity that'll tell you how much or how many things are going to be happening or changing? Okay, so what kind of an answer do you want? You're going to get an answer either way. And then again, just be practical. How much time do you have? Is the way that variable is organized satisfactory to the way you wanted your answer to your question? Which is easier for you? Some people feel like logistics a little bit easier for them to understand, and I'm going, then run that one. If you have a choice of how you code your variable and you could really run either, then run the one that's easier for you. Just be pragmatic about it. So keep that in mind. Only if you have an ordinal dependent variable. If you're nominal, you're doing logistic. If you're interval, you're doing linear. Okay. But again, you can measure things in so many ways, and you can look at different ways that we get information about drugs or about incarceration, or about mental health or family life. And there's just lots of different possibilities out there. Let's see, on the list. Let's see. Oh, if you're using data other than the data we have in class, please take note of the year of the data you have. Try to keep the data as recent as possible, because most of the time when we think about topics, we're thinking about them now as social life occurs and as we're looking at how the world works today. So if your data come from, 1987 or 1992, I'm going to go, they didn't have the internet back then. You're doing a topic on social media. They didn't even have dial-up, so that might not be suitable for your topic. And that's kind of a critique some people give. Well, your data's kind of old. It's actually like 25 years old. Are you sure you really want to measure delinquency with data that's 25 years old? So you have to think about that stuff. So try to get the most recent data you can, if at all possible. And then, again, if you have questions, reach out, but I'm going to be helping you through some of these exercises that you'll be doing pretty soon. It'll be pretty clear to me if you know what you're doing or not. So don't be shy. If you really don't know what you're doing, or you go, I don't really know how to do this, just contact me. We'll figure it out together. Okay. I also have some syntax that I've built for kind of complicated variables that have to do with things like single parents or race and some of those kinds of topics. So I'll be providing that to you as well, so that if you have kind of a complicated recode, you have a little bit of help in doing it. So those are kind of the main things that I saw in the topics and things I wanted to make sure you didn't lose track of, so that you're pulling your hair out in about a week trying to figure out what to do. But other than that, reach out, and hopefully this clarified a few things for you so you understand how it all works, and we'll see you soon.